Okay guys, we got a lot to get through today, and not a lot of time to do it, so let's just jump right into it with the X-Men Dark Phoenix trailer. This looks generic and just like all the crap we've seen before, so who cares. Moving on, we have the Neo stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to go through the effects and stuff. It's been a day and a half, and also I'm a little pressed for time today. So first up, let's talk about Elemental Hero Cosmo Neos. This is everything I was complaining about with the extra hero today, and arguably a little bit more insulting, actually. So this card is trash, mostly because of the fact that you need 4 monsters to summon this thing, and then its effect can be Ghost Ogred. Because listen to that reading. The effect isn't continuous. The effect, you have to activate it. Like, if I'm reading this correctly, you have to specifically turn it on to negate everything on the field. But it's like, for what? A 3500 beater. Like, that's not a lot. Remember, Neos is a deck that already has access to Grand Neos for spot removal, Flare Neos to get to huge numbers, Dark Neos for negation. Neos has a lot of stuff. It just needs to get good at toolboxing it. Like, that's what the deck needs. Not this sort of new random boss monster that just kind of doesn't really do anything for its investment. Now, some people may be saying, and someone brought this up on the Extra Hero video, and that is that, oh, well, something can be casual, something can just be fun. It doesn't have to be for competitive to be liked or whatever. And that's actually a very fair statement. And there are decks that are not top tier. They got support, legacy support, and have been made fun. Crystal Beast is a good example. Ancient Gear is a good example. But the difference between those and what we've been getting for the hero stuff is the hero stuff isn't even functional in what the deck is or what people want. That extra hero, whether you're playing Elementals or Destiny or whatever, I don't think any hero player has been wanting something that makes things into a decent beater that has piercing damage. I don't think that's what people really wanted out of the decks. Using this thing as an example, if you're playing Neos, like if you're a legit Neos fan, don't you just want to get to your plays easier or more effectively? Don't you not want just another random boss monster that's just gonna sit there? Like, it's a real bad card, and it's just that, you know, I see a lot of people who bring decks like Neos and stuff to locals, and they barely get to do any plays because the decks don't have any cards that really tutor anything out, because the decks never worked right in the first place. Neos was never good. It never functioned correctly. So I want the deck to be able to function right, and if you want to give them a new monster to use, that's great, but this thing, just, it's totally pointless. Moving on, though, we get some interesting stuff. We get a new fusion, Brave Neos, who's just summoned via normal means. Thank God. Has really good materials that you can just make with basically anything in the deck. And also its effect is interesting. Effects that are based on destroying monsters by battle are usually not that useful, because it doesn't allow you to tutor out or to set up. You now have to A, be going second, and you have to B, hope your opponent doesn't something that can beat over this or have a response to this thing. So it's a little specific and a little situational, so it's not the greatest thing in the world, but fortunately the new Spell and Trap cards Neos got actually are legitimately awesome. First up, you have Neos Fusion, which allows you to fusion summon from the deck. Great, that's it. That's giving the Neos people what they want. Contact Fusion for Neos is such an asinine summoning method that it really barely works for the deck. So what do you give it? This. Let them tutor stuff out from the deck. Let people summon the monsters they want to summon. Let them get them out easy. Yeah, it's weird it's limited to only 2 monsters, especially considering what also came out with this card. But it's a really good card that lets you have fun. It lets you make your extra deck plays. It lets you play the game. And then it protects the Neos Fusions at the end game. This is a legitimately fun, good card. Let people have this kind of stuff, not frickin' everything else we've been getting. And then finally, you have Next, which is also a really good card. Like, seriously, it's a trap you can activate from the hand if it's the first thing you do, and then you just spam the board with whatever in your hand. That's great. You get out your Neos, you get out your Neospacians, you just go off and fusion summon. These are good cards. These are legitimately good, useful cards that let you have fun with these decks. They let you play them. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, give us cards we can use and that's what they've done, and I appreciate it, and I hope we do get more. That, look, I'm not asking for Neos to be tier 1, I'm not asking for them to be the new Necros or whatever. I just want Neos functional. And I think they're making the steps to do it, with a couple missteps here and there. So then moving on, we have this week's episode. Holy shit, this was insane. First up, the duel. It went kind of how you expected. Windy had a final boss monster that didn't really do much, and then Revolver just summons Boral Savage Dragon, which is absolutely insane. Like, any negation effect is good. Obviously, the fact that it works with Link monsters can be a little awkward because it means this is a late game finisher, but they got an amazing tuner. And not only that, since it's a synchron, you could actually use this thing with tuning to maybe dump some cool stuff in the grave to work with it. So it's actually, I'm okay with it. Savage's design is really cool. Well, like, Boral has just like gone into synchro mode. And it is a really cool conclusion because I love just how savage the whole thing is. Like, there is this real intensity to the situation. First up, with the fact that Windy killed a guy. Windy killed the person he was cloned from, basically just because he has no interest in him or no desire for him. That's insane because it crosses a line that hadn't been crossed by the Ignises before. Up until now, like, there was always that argument that towards the end of the series, you can reason with them. You can work with them. You can get them on your side. But no, they've crossed a line. Windy in particular, and we should have seen this coming because Windy was shown from the beginning to have sort of this very eerie kind of playful side to him, a little sadistic. Like, remember, he did put up that windstorm that had those two guys trapped. So we know he's not the most good Ignis in the world, but the fact that he was willing to kill someone and was so nonchalant about it, it was just like, yeah, I did it. Who cares? He's just a human. Serve me, Revolver, and you can live. So because of this, it really makes coexistence not a thing, because we know that they will cross that line to get what they want. So because of this, you almost feel like maybe you should be on Revolver's side, but oh wait, Revolver's a psycho too, because then when the other three Knights of Hanoi show up, they still destroy the Ignis's home. You're reminded that all this was spawned because Revolver decided they must be destroyed. Their hatred for humans comes from Revolver. It comes from what the humans did. It comes from a fair and understandable place. However, the choices they then make afterwards is what makes them guilty as well. That idea that what we choose to do is ultimately what defines us. And I like that that is the defining factor in this whole duel. And then that ending, holy shit. Like, they were just stabbing him. You feel sorry for the little guy. It's legitimately horrifying. Like, you just see him getting stabbed, like, help me, lightning. Like, oh god, just reminding you just how, like, bad the situation really is. And then you see him when, like, lightning does save him and he's still, like, all cut up and destroyed. It's just really sadistic and it's cool. I almost thought for a minute that they were gonna let Windy die. Like, oh man, it was awesome. And then that final revelation that the brother is Lightning's partner and is like a servant. That's kind of cool. It's interesting. It's, again, it's very sadistic, and like the way he just sort of tortures and manipulates, like just that idea that the humans don't matter, they're just pets to us. That's very cool to me. And then you have Bowman and Haru show up again, just like a nice way to cap it all off. It is a little interesting, though, because I thought Bowman was like the Light Ignis's partner. Like, if I'm correct, it was 6 kids kidnapped, and presumably because they inherit the traits of their respective person, the water one must be based on a girl. At least I hope so. I don't want it to reveal the show really does hate women as much as we're starting to think it does. What was I saying? I personally think the water girl is Akira's boss. I think that's why, like, in the opening and whenever we see her, she's by a pool. I think that's a not so subtle hint as to who she is. And that could be an interesting revelation when that comes around. Like, why does she still choose to work for the company, even though she knows she was tortured, that kind of thing. I think that could be really interesting when we get there. But it leads the question, who or what is Bowman's? At this point, I think it's very possible they did that thing where it's like, oh, well, I'm the real Yusaku. I don't think it's that, but I think there's a very real possibility Bowman's is like a discarded AI. Maybe he's like the collective consciousness is taken from the children. Like, they were all put into one package type thing. Maybe Haru's also an AI. Maybe Haru made Bowmans. There's still a lot to happen, and it is interesting to see where this is going, so I'm quite excited. But are you? In the comment section below, give me your thoughts on this episode, on X-Men, on the Neo stuff, and tell me all you hope for the future. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me as things continue to get creepier.